Hey
Hey,
y'all.
Hey,
I'm Nakia White. I am the co-founder and communications chair for BookTini Book Club. And today I will be leading our first impression of our May book, along with two people on our book board. We have Christia from our BookTini DMV chapter, and we have Ashley from our BookTini Atlanta chapter. Welcome.
hey.
thank you.
Welcome. Our May book is Light Years from Here by Mike Chen. It is this month is our science fiction fantasy month, and this is a new genre for BookTini. We've only had it for, I believe, 1 year. Um, Previously, very rarely did we read science fiction, but it's a growing genre, so we added it to our book list for the year. What do you guys think about science fiction? Be honest, and fantasy. Be
It's not
honest.
my genre. It is so not my genre. It's so much, I think, the suspension of disbelief for me. It's such a different world, and it just depends on like how much does the author give me, um, so that I can understand like what am I reading, what is happening here. And so often it just like jumps right in, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't understand what's happening.
I generally like it. I like the genre as a whole, but probably a lot more in movie form, where I'm not kind of struggling with like you said, jumping right into like all of the technical terms and all of those things. I think it requires like really strong world building. And I think that part of it is so cool. And I like kind of like the concepts, but I'm much more often kind of end up watching science fiction fantasy than I do reading it.
I co-sign both of you. I don't, it's not my jam whatsoever, but I'm open to it, right? I'm open to it in some way. And I feel you, Chrissy, about the world building. I feel like it does require strong world building. And if it gets too technical or too niche, I can easily tune out. So we're going to have to, you know, build a world that's super duper interesting. And that's not easy. You know what I mean? You already got to tell a story, but also create a world. So yeah, it can be very hit or miss for me. So I miss it regularly. But this book that we're reading this month, Light Years from Home, it is science fiction fantasy, but there's also the huge element of relationships and family. This book is about a family that loses two of its members to an alien abduction. There's a father, mother, two daughters, and a son. And the father and son disappear during a camping trip in Northern California. And the father returns in a few days, but the son does not. And the father is basically like, we were abducted, and the rest of the family doesn't really know how to respond to that. Because what do you do if your if your father is like, your brother is in another galaxy? It's a war, intergalactic war coming, and that's why they took us. Um, so the book is more about the relationships within the family and how the family is affected by the situation. Jacob, the brother, does eventually come back 15 years later. And we read the first 50 chapters. So it starts off with Jacob in space somewhere, and he is actually assisting or fighting in a war. And we witness him losing his friend Henry, who was more like a machine alien situation. And then Jacob is like, I got to get back to Earth because my team is going to be affected. He downloads like information from Henry into his brain, and then he realizes he'll be a prime target because they can go into his brain, steal the info. So he decides to go hide back on Earth. And that's where we start. What did you guys think about this part of the book? Like what it started off as? It threw us right into these fighting aliens.
Didn't like it. I tried to start reading it on my flight, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Let me put on some Lotto. I need to concentrate for this because no, thank you. There was was no world building for me. I was just in the world and I didn't like it. And so it started off too much for me.
Yeah, I think so. I just recently started watching Star Wars for the first time. I've been going to the orchestra does movies and music, so I was like, that's a good way for me to like really jump into the world with having the orchestra playing the music. And so I think because I just saw that like last week in my head, I'm like picturing kind of like the world, but it's probably the world based on Star Wars. But I had some, like struggles where I thought that he kind of refers to one of the things and says, oh, on Earth, we would call this a force field. And so I thought that's what was going to happen, where there's going to be a lot of that kind of connecting it to a concept that we're kind of, that we understand. And he was like, you got one freebie, and now I'm giving you all of these base words, and you're just going to have to figure it out based on so off a little bit, where I think it's the same thing you said, Ashley, where it's like, oh, I'm just in this world. Like I'm not really getting the time to get to the world. I'm just in the world and I have to like get used to it. So I think it was helpful that we kind of from there we jump back to Earth and start talking about some Earth things that kind of help me ground me in the world.
Yeah, it got very science fiction-y, and I wonder if people who are like into sci-fi, if they are like, no, what do you mean, Christina? No. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that could be the draw for them, but for like the layman like us, it's like, do I need to know that much? Just get to Earth. I don't need to know how. I don't need to know what elements and things had to come together for you to just get there. You know what I mean? So yeah, it did get a little bit science fiction-y. What do you guys think about? So basically, he comes back to Earth, right? And we have two sisters who one is his twin, and she became like not the matriarch, but the responsible one when he ran off. She feels like he ran off because he was about to drop out of college, so they were like college age when this happened. She feels like he ran off from the family. He's not really abducted, and she's the one that's basically taking care of the parents in their older age. And then, is that Evie?
That's Cass.
Cass. So Evie is the younger sister. She moved away to the East Coast. She believes that he was abducted, and she's a part of like a UFO search party group that informs her that they have some kind of indication that Jacob may be back. So she's kind of not doing well financially. She finds a way to get back to California because they think he's in Reno, but she's been trying to get in contact with the twin, who basically has disowned her at this point. She won't answer her calls. So there's clearly a fraction with the sisters. What did you think about, I guess, how do you think you would respond if your sibling was abducted by aliens? Like, because we see two different reactions to it. One is like, he ain't really get abducted. The other one is like, no, he did. We got to find him. What do you think about that?
I guess my thought process is that I'm generally a pretty grounded kind of person. So I think if it would have been a situation where I would have been like the mother and at home when it happened, I might have just been like, he ran off. But I think what they give us is an interesting kind of situation where they were there, not quite, directly next to them when it happened, but they were there and experienced these really like weird things that happened where like there's light and the energy, like, in the like magnetic field, and they get blown back, and there's all of these things that happen that I think had I been there and experienced those things, maybe I would have a slight question, particularly when my dad comes back after just gone for a few days and it's like, this is what happened. Maybe I would like have some questions about but I don't know if I would immediately, I don't know. It's so hard to like assume how you would be in that situation. But I think the fact that there were weird things that they experienced gives a bit more credibility than if they hadn't been there.
Yeah,
I'd be Cass. I'd be Cass. I would just know he done run off. He's struggling. He about to lose the whole scholarship. He had to go and bye. That's all he did. I would be realistic.
I think so too. I think I would question it a bit, but I would lean more so toward he ran away instead of he got abducted. Because when you believe that, you got to change your whole world. If you believe that your brother got abducted, that changes everything, you know. And then you have to believe that you will likely never ever see him again. You know what I mean? So if he ran off, it's like he's probably still out there. We'll see him one day, you know.
Yeah, someone asked a good question. They asked, like, does it depend on, like, the sibling, who that person is? And so I do think in this situation, felt that it was, like, the slacker brother who they were already going to have an intervention with him and all of these things, where it makes it a lot more believable. I think if it had been the youngest sister at that point, where she was, like, very straight-laced, a scientist, all of these things, maybe they would have had more questions or assumed that something, like, bad happened to her, was abducted by a person, maybe, rather than aliens, versus just leaving. Because I think that's interesting as well, that there's no kind of questions about, they just assume he left rather than something happened to him. Even when their dad comes back and is clearly shaken up about what has occurred to them, they still are like, no, he left him.
Right. Ashley, do you have any I lost my questions, but I emailed them to Ashley, so.
I think we started to kind of cover it, but whose response to the abduction did you identify with more by the time you reached the end of chapter 5, Cass's or Evie's? I would say that I definitely identified more with Cass. Life has to go on and somebody has to be the responsible one. And I just think that personally, I would be the one like, well, let me pick up my life and get a job and help mom and dad. And
yeah. I think even if I did think that something strange happened, I wouldn't see myself going to the extreme of the younger sister of joining a full-on, like, UFO identification network and doing videos. I don't think that would happen. I think I'm too responsible where, like thing, even if he did get abducted by aliens, like, things still have to happen. Like, I don't know how I'm going to go and save him from the so mom still needs to, like, be taken care of in the meantime.
Right. I completely agree. I wonder if I would join a UFO group. I don't know. Because you would need somebody to be able to talk to about it, right? About the fact that your brother may have been abducted. Like, you can't just talk to random people, just a regular friend. You have to kind of talk to somebody that would have, I guess, an understanding or a background, who wouldn't just think you're crazy if you were like, I just have a feeling, 3% he probably did get abducted. So you need somebody to be able to talk.
Even if I thought it probably crazy, like, if I would probably go on, like, a chat line or something, but I think even if I knew that, like, that happened for me, I don't know if I would trust that that is the actual experience of other people. I would be like, no, those people are crazy, but that happened for
me. Okay. Any other questions on there?
Did chapters 1 through 5 leave you with more questions than when you started the book? And what are your true feelings about the book so far? I have more questions than when I started the book. I guess because when I started the book, I just started with so many questions. What is Henry? Where is he? What is going to happen? How is he going to get back to where he just left? Why does he want to get back? Because I want to know, why does he want to get back? If I was in
he is a soldier.
I wouldn't be no good soldier, because if I was in a war and I managed to get out, baby, you would never see me again. Okay? Call me a deserter. All right? I'd be gone.
Yeah, he is determined.
I feel
go
like
ahead.
I want to know. Yeah, I have definitely more questions than answers at this point. I want to know, what does it look like when he sees his sisters again? Like, I want to know more about like the decision process of getting transported to space and just being like, well, this is where I live now. Like, or like, at least the way it's like, even when he talked about coming back to Earth, it was like, oh, I guess. Like, he just seemed like this is where he wanted to be. So interesting it makes me think about the Marvel movie where where like someone Guardians of the Galaxy, where he gets abducted as a child into space and just becomes like a space warrior and just never comes home. And so that's always interesting to me, like these choices to just say like, it seems like he wanted something new, like Earth wasn't for him and he just happened to get, it was happenstance that this happened for someone who wanted to be out in the world. But I want to know more about making the choice to just decide to never go home. And it seems, and he said he sent his dad back. So it seems like there was a possibility to go back.
And
Yeah.
I'm curious that he doesn't seem to have like a game plan for just like coming home. I mean, Lord knows, like coming home too late, people are like, "Were you okay? We thought you were going to be home hours ago." And this man done been gone 15 years, and he's just like, "I guess I'll just go home." Like, do you even know what home you're going to? What are you going to tell these people? You just finally showed up with the milk. Those supply chain lines. Like, he just has no plan, and I'm like, I don't. You gonna
Look,
show up like I'm back?
we say all the time, Earth is ghetto. So maybe that's why he didn't want to come back. He was like, it's lit up here. It's much better. I mean, he does have to be a soldier. Maybe he doesn't have to. He just wanted to. I don't know. But maybe life is better for him. And he was not excited to come back. Just coming back to be safe so he doesn't, get killed or his team is safe. I definitely have questions. I want to know if this man was he really abducted, or is this a mental illness situation? Like, what is really happening? That's what I want to know. Those are my questions. And I also want to know why the sisters are just not, especially the older one, what her deal is, because you would think dealing with that type of tragedy, because it's a tragedy, your brother is missing, especially with the oldest one being his twin. I'm pretty sure that bond is difficult to deal with, missing. And then the one sibling you have left, you don't even want to talk to her when she calls you. So I'm interested in hearing about what happened in the meantime for their relationships to deteriorate this way, you know. Christy, you made a very good point about science fiction and fantasy and how the storytelling is in the relationships. Can you
Yeah.
share that?
Yeah. So I feel like, and I was, like I said, I was glad when we jumped from kind of like space to Earth to kind of like recenter ourselves and kind of talk about the aftermath of those who are left. I think and that's what, there's almost this selfish choice there of saying like, I'm going to stay in space. I don't really care about what my family is going through in response to me having left them. And so we get to spend all of this time with his sisters and his mom, kind of finding out what does that look like. And so that is one thing I do really like about what we see in a lot of fantasy and science fiction, is that particularly with dystopian narratives, we see what's the aftermath of life after this occurrence happens, and how do people respond to that, and what do those relationships look like. And so it's always said a lot about The Walking Dead, where it's like, it's a drama that just happens to be within a zombie apocalypse, because it's about how do people talk to each other? How do people relate to each other? What do those relationships look like? What is guilt and all of these things look like in a space of something supernatural? So it's almost like the supernatural is tangential to just
Right.
creating this narrative and this drama that we then get to see how people respond in.
Very true. Great, 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 great point. So that's what I'm looking forward to in reading the rest of the book. So far, this is the last question. So far, what are you thinking?
I feel like one of those ones where I have to finish it because I need to know what happens. Like, I feel like that is as well like the drama of sci-fi and fantasy, is that you're like, who's the bad guy? What happens? Who wins? Like, what happens here? So I think that pull of it is going to make me want to finish. And I'll be interested in the relationship building.
I just
Okay.
hope that, Ronnie, if you're still on here, that you finish the book, girl, and let me know what happens.
Girl, you better read this book. Like, no. Well, I'm going to finish it. I'm interested in relationships. What are you going to say?
No, I agree. I do want to know how this is. I might have to just skip over Jacob's chapter, truth be told. He's the Kevin Pearson of this family. I don't have time for Kevin Pearson, and I don't have time for Jacob. So,
And you know, him landing, because where we left off, he just landed back on Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like naked. Does he have on like a
He's got
something
a toga / potato sack on
with no shoes?
I thought space was more lit. Like,
And yeah, I'm really interested in seeing how he gets to where, like, how he gets found by his family or whatever. So, and how he responds to Earth. Because if you disappeared 15 years ago, things are different, sir.
but it sounds like
Very
he's fitting
different.
right in because he's hanging out with those frat boys or those college kids or whatever. He's about to go gambling. They're giving him $20. He seems like he might fit in just fine. But I
They
want to
had
know
to be
what
very
he,
drunk.
yeah.
yeah.
But I want to know what happens when he walks up in somebody's home and it's just like, I'm home.
Right.
That's the scene I want to see.
Right.
And I want to
What's
see
that?
from Cass's point of view because she's going to tell us the truth.
Yeah.
like
Um,
he's an actor. He's a chameleon. He's always been like that. So I think he's like the right person who could have gone to space and figured out a way to fit in and can come back to Earth and still find a way to maneuver people.
mhm. It's going to be interesting. If you're in the Bay Area, the Bay Area Book Festival is this Saturday and Sunday, and Mike Chen will be there um, to promote this book, or he's on a panel. I think it's about science fiction. I might be there. I don't know. We shall see. But that made me say, "Oh, our author is there. I might want to go see him." Um, Yeah. So yeah, go ahead and read Home or Light Years from Home by Mike Chen. Our drink for this month is the Delirium Red Beer, which is supposed to be sweet and fruity. So check that out. And hopefully you enjoy our science fiction selection for the month. Thank you for joining me, Christy and Ashley. And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next time. Happy reading.